The ship that carried Captain Daniel Hayes and his team toward the Galactic Council station was smaller than he had hoped. The ISS Endeavour had been built by humans using human technology, and it showed every limitation of their young civilization. But Daniel did not complain. He looked out at the vast darkness of space and felt pride instead of doubt. Earth had waited decades to reach this moment. For years, the planet had sent out peaceful signals, hopping to contact other worlds. And finally, the galaxy had answered. The Galactic Council had extended an invitation to Earth to join their ranks as a full member. This was the moment that would change everything for humanity. Daniel was a tall man with strong shoulders and steady gray eyes. He had been chosen to lead Earth's diplomatic mission because he was calm under pressure and because he understood people. His face showed his years of military service, but his voice was always clear and confident. He had trained for this mission for months, studying the customs and languages of 100 different civilizations. The team with him included Admiral, who commanded Earth's military forces, was an older man with white hair and the bearing of someone who had made difficult decisions and lived with the results. Senator represented Earth's government. She was sharp and intelligent, with a mind that could pick apart complex agreements and find the weak points. There were also scientists, trade representatives, and security personnel. They were Earth's best, sent to show the galaxy what humanity had to offer. As the Endeavour approached the Galactic Council station, Daniel gathered his team in the main briefing room. The room was small and utilitarian, nothing like the grand spaces they would soon see. Daniel stood before them and spoke with the quiet authority that came from men who had faced real danger. "Listen carefully," he said. "We are walking into a place where we are the members, where we are the youngest species, where we are the least advanced. Some of them will see us as children, some will see us as a curiosity, and some will see us as potential threats. But here is what we know. We survived on a world that tried to kill us every day. We built our civilization while fighting against gravity that is stronger than any other inhabited planet. We developed technology not because it was easy, but because we refused to accept limits. We are here because we earned it." Nodded, but looked worried. She had read the reports about some of the civilizations they would meet. The Empire had existed for over 1 million years. The collective had technology that made human science look like toys made by children. The Alliance controlled entire star systems. And Earth, the small blue planet, had just learned how to leave its own atmosphere a few decades ago. The station appeared before them like a city floating in the void. It was enormous beyond anything Daniel had imagined. Towers of crystalline material shot upward and curved in impossible angles. Ships of every shape and size moved through the docking bays. The station was a hub of activity and power, the center of a galactic civilization that had been building itself for millions of years. The Endeavour docked at the designated port, and Daniel led his people through the corridors toward the main diplomatic chamber. The walls around them were made of materials that shifted color in the light. The air was perfectly regulated at a temperature that was comfortable for a wide range of species. Everything was efficient and advanced, showing a level of development that humans were still years away from achieving. They met their first official greeter in the form of an ambassador named, who belonged to a species called the Merchants of Tau. Had 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face, and his skin was a deep orange color. He spoke perfect English, which surprised Daniel until he realized that universal translation devices had been invented thousands of years ago in this part of the galaxy. "Welcome, humans," said, his voice making a strange clicking sound as he spoke. "The Council is eager to meet you. You are the youngest species to be invited to join. This is a momentous occasion." Daniel shook the offered appendage that served as hand. "We are honored to be here. We hope to show the Council that Earth has much to contribute to the galaxy." Made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are optimistic. I like that in young species. Come. The welcoming ceremony begins in 1 hour. You will need to understand the protocols." The protocols were extensive and confusing. There were specific ways to greet each species. There were rules about how close you could stand to different representatives. There were correct forms of address and incorrect ones. There were hand gestures that could offend entire civilizations. Daniel's team listened carefully and tried to remember everything, but he could see the anxiety in their faces. When they finally entered the Grand Hall, Daniel understood why the protocols mattered. The chamber was enormous, so vast that it seemed impossible that something so large had been built. The ceiling was transparent and showed the stars beyond. The floor was polished smooth and reflected the light like a mirror. And around the room, on elevated platforms and in special zones, sat representatives of countless civilizations. Some looked vaguely human, with 2 arms and 2 legs and faces that had eyes and mouths. Others were completely alien. There were creatures that looked like insects the size of buildings. There were beings that appeared to be made of pure light. There were representatives that seemed to be collective consciousnesses, with multiple bodies moving as a single unified mind. They all turned to look at the humans as Daniel, and his team walked forward. Daniel could feel the weight of their attention. This was a test, he realized. They were watching to see how humans would behave. Would they be intimidated? Would they show respect? Would they embarrass themselves through ignorance of proper customs? He straightened his back, held his head level, and walked forward with confidence. His team followed. They did not bow or cower. They did not seem afraid or uncertain. They simply walked forward and took the position that had been assigned to them. That was when the doors to the upper level opened, and Princess of the Empire descended into the hall. She was beautiful in a way that seemed almost impossible. She had 4 arms, each one graceful and strong. Her skin shifted between silver and deep purple, as if it was made of liquid metal. Her eyes were large and ancient, filled with the wisdom of a civilization that had existed longer than human history. She wore clothing that seemed to shimmer with its own light, and her presence filled the chamber with an undeniable authority. The entire hall seemed to lean toward her. Even the representatives of other powerful civilizations gave her their attention. Princess paused at the top of the grand staircase. Her eyes swept across the hall, and then they stopped on the humans. Daniel could see the moment her mind made a judgment. It was there in the slight curve of her mouth, the way her eyes narrowed. She had decided that the humans were insignificant. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest, but he controlled it. He had expected this. He had prepared himself for it. The youngest species in the galaxy would always be seen as primitive and unimportant. They would have to prove themselves. He turned to and whispered, "Stay calm. Whatever happens next, we show them what we are really made of." The princess continued down the stairs, and the formal ceremony began. Representatives from major civilizations were presented and welcomed. Trade agreements were discussed. Military alliances were acknowledged. And when the time came for Earth to be presented, the master of ceremonies called out in a formal voice, "We welcome the humans from the planet Earth, a young species taking their first steps into the galaxy. May they find their place among the civilized worlds." It was not a warm welcome. It was the kind of greeting you gave to something you did not yet understand and did not expect much from. Daniel listened to the words and felt the dismissal in them. But he also felt something else. He felt the beginning of a challenge. And he had never backed down from a challenge in his life. After the formal ceremony ended, the representatives broke into small groups and began private discussions. Daniel watched as the other delegations moved with purpose, greeting old allies, and discussing matters that were clearly important to the galactic community. The humans stood alone in a corner, waiting to be acknowledged. It was clear that no one important was going to speak to them. They were the newcomers, the unknowns, the species that had nothing to offer the established powers. Daniel could see it in the way other representatives looked past his team as if they were invisible. Then a voice cut through the noise of the hall. "Captain Hayes, I believe we have much to discuss." It was Princess. She had walked directly toward them, ignoring the shocked expressions on the faces of the other representatives. The Empire's princess did not usually approach lesser species. She did not usually make the effort to be first in any negotiation. Daniel turned to face her. He was a tall man, but was taller. She looked down at him with eyes that held millions of years of civilization and culture behind them. Her 4 arms made her seem even more imposing. "Princess," Daniel said, offering a nod that was respectful but not subservient. "We are honored by your attention." "Are you?" asked. Her voice was like music, but music that could cut. "That surprises me. I would think humans might be nervous about meeting a civilization that has existed for over 1 million years. But you seem confident. Foolishly so, perhaps." Daniel did not step back. He did not lower his eyes. "We are not nervous about learning, and we are not foolish about admitting what we do not know, but we are confident in what we are. Is that a problem for the Empire?" Something flickered in his eyes. It might have been surprise, it might have been anger, it was hard to tell. "Come," she said, turning away. "I want to speak with you in private. Perhaps you can explain to me why Earth thought it had anything valuable to offer the galaxy." Daniel followed her without hesitation, ignoring the worried looks from men. He knew he was breaking protocol. The formal rules stated that negotiations should happen through channels, with advisors present and careful preparation. But Daniel had learned long ago that the real conversations often happened in unexpected moments. Led him to a private chamber that was attached to the main hall. The room was beautiful, with walls that seemed to be made of transparent crystal. Outside the walls, the stars spread out in a vast tapestry of light. "Sit," commanded, settling into a chair that seemed to be designed specifically for her body shape. Daniel sat in the offered seat. He did not try to appear comfortable or confident. He simply sat and waited, knowing that silence was sometimes the best answer. "Tell me what makes humanity valuable," said. "By any standard that matters, you are insignificant. Your technology is primitive. Your civilization is young. You control no significant territory. You have no weapons that would concern any major power. You have no resources that cannot be found in 100 other places. So explain to me why the Galactic Council bothered to extend an invitation to your species." Daniel took a moment before answering. He could have given the prepared speech that he had practiced for months. He could have talked about human potential and human intelligence and human determination. But looking at the princess, he realized that those words would not work. She wanted truth, not pretty words. "You are correct," he said. "By those measurements, we are insignificant. Earth is a harsh world, our gravity is heavy, our weather is extreme, our day and night cycles are different from most planets. Most life on Earth struggles just to survive. When humans first appeared on our world, we were weak. We were slower than the predators that hunted us. We were less strong. We had less endurance. We should have been eaten and forgotten." Listened. She did not interrupt, but Daniel could see her attention was focused on him. "We survived," Daniel continued. "We survived because we think. We survived because we adapt. When we could not run fast enough, we learned to make weapons. When we could not see in the dark, we learned to make fire. When we could not survive in the cold, we learned to build shelter. We took a world that should have killed us and we made it our home. And that is who we are, not the strongest, not the oldest, not the most advanced, but the species that refuses to accept that anything is impossible." "That is a story," said, "but stories do not matter in the real galaxy. Power matters, strength matters, technology matters, not persistence and optimism." "I disagree," Daniel said. He was not trying to argue with her. He was simply stating what he believed. "On Earth, we have learned that a determined person can accomplish things that stronger people cannot. A person who refuses to give up can find solutions that a person who surrenders never sees. The Empire has existed for 1 million years. You have achieved much. But the greatest civilizations are not the ones that conquered the most. They are the ones that adapted the best. That survived the longest. That learned from every challenge." Rose from her seat. For a moment, Daniel thought he had made a mistake. He thought that he had insulted the princess and that she would have him removed from the station. Instead, she walked to the transparent wall and looked out at the stars. "You are bold," she said. "You speak to me as if you are my equal. You do not show proper respect for rank or power or age. By the laws of my empire, you should be punished for such behavior." "I know," Daniel said, "but if I had shown false respect, I would have been lying, and you asked me for truth." Turned back to face him. The empire does not forget those who show disrespect. Remember that, human. But there was something in her voice that was not completely angry. There was something that sounded almost like interest, almost like respect. An alarm suddenly screamed through the station. Red lights flooded the private chamber. Over the communication system, a voice announced words that made Daniel's blood run cold. "Security alert. The collective has breached the lower defense sectors. All personnel should move to secure locations immediately. This is not a drill. This is a genuine attack." The princess's expression changed. The curiosity and interest vanished, replaced by something cold and focused. This was a warrior's face. This was the face of someone whose entire civilization had survived 1,000,000 years through strength and power. "The station is under attack," said. "This changes everything. Captain Hayes, I suggest you return to your people and prepare for the worst. Do not show mercy to weak species." She moved toward the door, her attendants rushing to meet her with protective equipment. "Wait," Daniel said, moving quickly to the wall controls. His fingers flew across the interface, pulling up the station's security systems and defense maps. "How long until they reach the diplomatic sector?" Paused, "Perhaps 30 minutes if they move quickly. Why does this matter?" "Because we have 30 minutes to understand what they want and how to stop them," Daniel said. "And because if we do not work together, none of us will survive." He looked at her with steady eyes. He had no fear now. He had no doubt. This was the moment that would decide everything for humanity. This was the moment that would prove whether humans truly belonged in the galaxy or whether they were as insignificant as everyone believed. The emergency systems of the Galactic Council station began to activate. Shields descended over critical areas. Security forces mobilized toward the breach points. But there was something wrong with the response. It was too slow. It was too uncoordinated. The Council's defenses were built for peace, not for actual warfare. Daniel could see it immediately. The security forces were moving toward the main corridor where they had breached. That was where they expected them to be. That was where they had prepared their strongest attack. "They are going the wrong direction," Daniel said, looking at the security display. "Your forces are moving into the trap." Study the tactical maps over his shoulder. Explain. "They are organized. They are military. They know that your security forces will respond to the breach, so they set their main attack where they knew you would send the most soldiers. While your people are fighting there, they send secondary forces through the side corridors. By the time you realize what happened, they will already be in the administrative heart of the station." Daniel pointed to the maintenance tunnels on the map. "Here. These passages are small and narrow. The armor suits will not fit through easily. These are the routes they are avoiding because they think they are too difficult. But if we position people here and here, we can cut off the secondary attack force." Looked at the young human captain. She had ruled for over 200 years. She had commanded military forces across an empire that spanned 1,000 star systems. But she saw something in Daniel that most humans never showed. She saw someone who thought clearly under pressure. Someone who could see what others missed. "Move to the main security center," she commanded. "We will redirect the defense forces using your strategy." They ran through the corridors with guards protecting them. Behind them, the sounds of combat echoed through the station. Weapons fire and strange alien screams created a terrible sound that no one had expected to hear on the council station. When they reached the security center, Admiral was already there. He had anticipated that the humans might be needed and had moved into position, was helping coordinate with the station's command personnel, translating human military concepts into terms the Galactic Council could understand. "They are trying to overwhelm the main defense line," said when he saw Daniel. "They have committed more forces than we expected. The station's security chief does not think they can hold." "They do not need to hold," Daniel replied. He moved to the command terminal and pulled up the tactical display. "They need to delay. The main battle is a distraction. The real attack is happening through the side passages." Daniel explained the strategy to the station's security chief, an officer named Commander. They were a military species, built for combat and strategy. Listened to Daniel's plan and immediately grasped its logic. "Reroute the secondary forces to block these passages," ordered, "and send a strike team here and here. We will cut off their advance before they reach the administrative sector." The battle was intense and brutal. There were powerful warriors with advanced technology. They had armor that could deflect most conventional weapons. They had explosives that could breach any normal defense. But they had also prepared their attack based on facing civilizations that fought in expected ways. What they had not prepared for was humans. Daniel coordinated the defense, not by overpowering them but by outthinking them. When they expected a frontal assault, the humans set up defensive positions in side corridors that forced them to divide their forces. When they tried to use their superior technology to overwhelm the defenses, the humans used the station's architecture to neutralize that advantage. Narrow corridors and tight spaces meant they could not deploy their heavy weapons effectively. And more importantly, the humans worked with the other species on the station. They communicated with the forces, and fought alongside representatives from a dozen different civilizations. They treated everyone as partners rather than subjects or rivals. When a group of warriors tried to fight their way through the lower levels toward the diplomatic sector, it was a human soldier named Gregory who made the critical decision. Gregory was not a trained strategist. He was a simple security officer who had served in the military for 15 years. But he understood one thing that they did not understand: how to use improvisation and adaptation to overcome a stronger opponent. He took a group of mixed aliens and a small cache of weapons, and he set up a defense in a sector that they had to pass through. When they attacked with overwhelming force, Gregory did not retreat. Instead, he ordered his team to use the environment. They overloaded power conduits to create electrical barriers. They sealed off sections using mechanical locks that they could not break through quickly. They created a maze of obstacles that forced them to slow down and adapt. And when they finally broke through, the secondary defense force was waiting. The attack was stopped. The battle lasted for 6 hours. When it finally ended, the who had not been killed or captured began to retreat. Their expected easy victory had turned into a catastrophic failure. They had lost more forces than they had anticipated. They had been outmaneuvered by a combination of species that should not have been able to work together. The Galactic Council emerged from the secure areas to see the damage. The station had been hurt, but it was still standing. The collective had been bloodied but not destroyed. And the humans had proven something that no one in the galaxy had expected to see proven. Daniel stood in the main hall, covered in dust and exhaustion. He had not been in direct combat, but he had fought nonetheless. He had fought with his mind and his strategy. He had made decisions that had determined whether people lived or died. And he had led warriors from a dozen different species in a coordinated defense against an enemy that should have overwhelmed them. Princess walked toward him. Her clothing was torn in places and she had blood on her skin, but her eyes were clear and focused. "You fought well," she said. "Your people fought well. I did not expect humans to have such combat capability." "We are not warriors," Daniel replied. "We are just people who refuse to give up. Sometimes that is enough." Looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned away and walked toward the center of the hall. She raised her voice and called for the attention of every representative present. "The collective attacked this station in the belief that we were weak and unprepared," she announced. "But we were not attacked alone. We were defended by forces that included the members of the Galactic Council. The humans stood with us. The humans fought with us. And the humans helped save this station from destruction." She paused, looking at Daniel. "I came to this council believing that humans were insignificant. I was wrong. I overlooked something important. I overlooked the fact that true strength does not come from age or technology. It comes from character and determination and the willingness to stand with others when danger comes." The chamber fell silent. Everyone was watching. Everyone was listening. "The Empire recognizes the contribution of Earth and humanity," said. "We will not overlook them again." In the days following the attack, the Galactic Council called for a formal session to discuss what had happened and what it meant for galactic security. Representatives gathered in the Grand Hall, and the chamber was filled with conversation and debate. Some wanted to pursue the retreating forces and end the threat completely. Others wanted to strengthen the Council's defenses and ensure nothing like this could happen again. But when Daniel was asked to speak, he brought a different perspective. "They attacked because they believed we were weak," he said. "They believed that a civilization built on peace and trade would not be able to defend itself. But that belief is not the real problem. The real problem is that we are not strong enough yet. Our defenses are built for peace. Our weapons are old. Our tactics are outdated. We are not prepared for a world where threat is real and constant." He paused, looking at the assembled representatives. "On Earth, we learned long ago that strength requires constant attention. A weapon that is not maintained becomes useless. A warrior who does not train becomes weak. A civilization that does not prepare for danger will eventually fall. You have been at peace for so long that you forgot what danger looks like. The showed you." Commander stood to speak. There was a military officer, a being created by an entire species to understand combat and strategy. "Captain Hayes is correct. The Galactic Council's security posture is inadequate. We are lucky that humans were present during the attack. Their strategies were unconventional but effective. We should study their methods." Other representatives began to agree. The attack had shaken them. They had believed themselves safe. They had believed their power was enough to discourage anyone from attacking, but they were wrong and they knew it. Rose to address the council. She was a skilled politician and a brilliant negotiator. Earth's government wishes to propose a partnership, not a relationship where one side leads and the other follows, but a true partnership where both sides learn from each other and work toward mutual defense and mutual growth. The debate that followed was intense. Some representatives supported the idea, others opposed it. The ancient powers of the galaxy did not like the idea of treating a young species as an equal. They did not like the idea that humans could teach them something important. But the Empire had made its position clear, and where the led, others often followed. During this time, Daniel found himself spending more time with Princess. The princess had questions about humanity and human strategy. She wanted to understand what made humans think differently from other species. She wanted to know what Earth had experienced that taught humans to survive in conditions that would destroy other civilizations. One evening, they stood on an observation platform that overlooked the docking bays. Ships from 100 different species were docked or arriving. The station was a city of the galaxy, a meeting point for civilizations that spanned thousands of worlds and millions of years of history. "Your people have been part of the galactic community for less than 1 year," said, "and in that time, they have already changed the way we see defense and strategy. How is that possible?" "We have not changed anything," Daniel replied. "We just brought what we learned from our own world. Earth is harsh. We learned to think quickly and adapt constantly. We learned that planning is important, but flexibility is more important. A plan that does not adapt to changing circumstances is just a road to failure." Turned to look at him. In my empire, we value tradition and established ways. We have been successful for 1 million years by following systems that have been proven. But you are suggesting that those same systems might be our weakness. I am suggesting that a civilization that never changes will eventually be unable to respond to new challenges, Daniel said carefully. They taught you that. They attacked because they believed you would respond in traditional ways, and you almost did. If not for the changes that we introduced, they would have succeeded. Was silent for a long time. Daniel could see the conflict in her expression. She had been raised in a society that valued age and tradition above all else. The idea that new ideas from a young species might have value was not something she had expected to believe. The Council will vote tomorrow on Earth's partnership proposal, said finally. The results are not certain. There are those in my empire who see humans as a threat. They see your growth potential as something that must be contained rather than encouraged. What do you see? Daniel asked. I see a species that has changed my understanding of strength, said. I see a people that have shown us that power is not the only measure of value, but I also see difficult choices ahead. If I support this partnership openly, it will create division in my empire. There are those who will see it as weakness or foolishness. Daniel looked at her. Then do not do it for me or for Earth. Do it because you believe it is right. Do it because you believe that the empire will be stronger with human partnership than without it. His expression hardened. You ask much of me, human. I ask only for honesty, Daniel replied. I ask for you to choose based on what you believe, not on what is convenient or traditional. The next day, the Galactic Council gathered for the vote. The proposal was simple. Earth would be recognized as a full member of the Council with all rights and responsibilities. A military partnership would be established between Earth and interested members of the Council. Trade agreements would be negotiated. Cultural exchanges would be encouraged. The vote began. Representatives from across the galaxy cast their decisions. Some voted yes. Some voted no. The numbers were close enough that the outcome was uncertain. Then Princess rose to speak. The Empire votes yes, she announced. But we go further. We formally propose a military alliance between the Empire and Earth. We pledge to provide technology and knowledge to humans who wish to acquire it. We pledge to defend Earth if it is threatened. And we pledge to treat humanity as partners and equals in the galactic community. The chamber erupted. Some representatives shouted in support. Others voiced fierce opposition. The king of the ancients stood and demanded to know why would make such a commitment to a species that had been in the galaxy for less than a year. His response was calm and certain. Because they have shown us something we had forgotten. Because they have taught us that strength takes many forms. Because they have proven that a young species can bring value that ancient civilizations cannot. And because it is the right decision, even if it is not the traditional one. When the final vote was counted, the partnership passed. Earth became more than just a member of the Galactic Council. It became an ally of the Empire, one of the greatest powers in the galaxy. But the victory came with a cost. When received the communication from, her expression became distant and cold. Her first counselor, Vex, was demanding that she return home immediately. The High Council was calling for an explanation of her unprecedented actions. Some of the most powerful families in the Empire were threatening to sever their connections to the royal house. Daniel saw the pain in her face and understood what she had sacrificed for this alliance. She had chosen partnership over tradition. She had chosen the future over the comfortable past, and her own people were punishing her for it. But she did not regret her decision. Daniel could see that in her eyes. The Empire did not forgive Princess easily. The High Council removed her from the direct line of succession for 5 years. Several ancient families cut their political ties with the royal house. Conservative members of the government began to speak openly about her choices being a betrayal of everything the Empire stood for. But did not change her position. She remained on the Galactic Council Station. She continued to work with Earth's representatives on military cooperation and technology transfer, and she made it clear that she would defend her decision to anyone who questioned it. In the weeks following the formal alliance, the station became a meeting place for a new kind of galactic relationship. Humans began to work together on practical problems. Engineers from both species shared knowledge and developed new technologies. Military officers trained together and learned from each other's strategies. Scientists discussed concepts that spanned the universe. And through it all, Daniel found themselves working closely together. The princess was learning to understand the human way of thinking. The captain was learning to navigate the complex politics of an ancient and powerful civilization. One night, just before Earth's delegation was scheduled to depart and return home, they found themselves alone on the observation deck again. The stars spread out before them in all their infinite glory. The vast darkness of space seemed to hold the secrets of an entire galaxy. "I will not be able to return to Earth with you," said. "Not yet. The political situation in my empire is too volatile. If I am absent, those who oppose the partnership will use it as evidence that I do not truly believe in my own decisions." Daniel nodded. He had expected this. How long? "Until the people understand that this is not a weakness," replied. "Until they see that human partnership makes the empire stronger rather than diminishing it. Perhaps 5 years, perhaps longer." "That is a long time to be separated from everything you know," Daniel said. "I am not separated," replied. She turned to face him, and in the starlight her skin seemed to shimmer even more than usual. "Everything I know has changed in a single month. I came to this station believing that my empire was complete and that the galaxy would remain as it had always been. But you showed me that is not how the universe works. The universe is always changing. The question is whether we change with it or are left behind." "Why did you really do it?" Daniel asked. "Why did you risk so much for an alliance with humans? We bring nothing that your empire needs. We have no ancient knowledge. We have no weapons that can match your weapons. We have no resources that cannot be found elsewhere. By every logical measure, the partnership makes no sense." Was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet and filled with emotion. "Because you saw me as a person, not as a princess. Because you treated me as an equal even though everything in my life had taught me that no one was my equal. Because you were willing to sacrifice your comfort and your expectations for what you believed was right. And because I realized that a civilization that never changes, that never learns, that never challenges its own assumptions, will eventually die." She paused. "When I first met you, I dismissed humanity as insignificant. I believed that age and power and technology were the measures of worth. But you have shown me that I was wrong. The empire has existed for 1,000,000 years, but it has never learned the lesson that humans learned in just a few thousand years. We forgot that survival depends on adaptation. We forgot that strength comes in many forms. We forgot that the value of a person or a species is not determined by their power, but by their character." Daniel reached out and took her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it meant something profound. It meant treating her as an equal. It meant acknowledging her as a person rather than as a representative of her civilization. "When I return to Earth," he said, "I will tell our people what you have done. I will tell them that there is a leader among the ancient powers of the galaxy who believes in humanity. I will tell them that we are not alone anymore." "You were never alone," said. "You simply had to show the galaxy who you really are. You had to make the galaxy look at you and see, truly see, what humans are capable of. You did that through courage and intelligence and a refusal to accept that anything was impossible." The morning of departure came with more news. The High Council had formally recognized the military partnership with Earth. Trade agreements were being prepared. Scientific cooperation was being planned. And most importantly, Earth was no longer being overlooked. As Daniel prepared his team to board the Endeavor, came to say goodbye. She extended her primary right hand in the human gesture of farewell. Daniel clasped it, and for a moment, the ancient princess and the young captain stood connected across the vast distance between their civilizations. "What will you do now?" Daniel asked. "I will work to make my people understand that the future belongs to those who are willing to change," replied. "I will show them that Earth's partnership will make the empire stronger, not weaker, and I will keep your people safe, as an empire should keep its allies safe." Daniel smiled. "And what about you? What do you want for yourself?" "I want to learn," said. "I want to learn from humans how to live without being bound by the traditions of the past. I want to understand what makes your people so adaptable and so determined. And I want to be part of building something new, something that has never existed in the galaxy before." "What is that?" Daniel asked. "A civilization built not on dominance or control, but on partnership and mutual respect," replied. "A galaxy where young species are not overlooked but welcomed. A future where difference is seen as strength rather than weakness." As the Endeavor lifted away from the station, Daniel watched the princess grow smaller on the observation deck. He thought about everything that had happened in just a few weeks. He thought about how the galaxy had underestimated humanity and how humans had proved them wrong. He thought about how one person, one princess, had been willing to risk everything to recognize the value in a species that others dismissed. The ship jumped into hyperspace, and Earth vanished from the visual displays. But Daniel knew that something fundamental had changed. Humanity was no longer overlooked. The galaxy had seen what humans could do, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. Back on the station, Princess stood alone on the observation deck. She looked out at the vast expanse of space and thought about the young captain from the primitive world who had taught her the most important lesson an ancient civilization could learn. True strength was not about power or age or technology. True strength was about choosing to do what was right, even when it was difficult. True strength was about recognizing the value in others and standing with them when the darkness came. And true strength, she realized, was something that the humans of Earth had possessed all along. The galaxy had simply overlooked it. The station hummed with activity around her. Representatives from 100 species worked together in ways that had never been done before. The partnership with Earth was already changing the way galactic civilization worked. And it all began with one human captain who refused to be overlooked and one ancient princess who finally learned to see.